Thanks for joining us on the Cultured Meat and Future Food Show. This podcast is for anyone interested in cultured meat and future food technologies. We're excited to have Björn Öste as the guest for today's episode. 2020 is packed with events in the cultured meat space. In March, Industrializing Cell-Based Meats comes back to San Francisco. In April, the new food conference from ProVeg takes place in Berlin. This July, the New Harvest Conference is taking place on July 10th and 11th, back at the MIT Media Lab in Boston. Registration will be available soon at new-harvest.org. October, the 6th International Scientific Conference on Cultured Meat is scheduled for October 11th through 13th in Maastricht. Lastly, the Cultured Meat Symposium, or CMS 20, is taking place on October 29th and 30th in San Francisco. This year, topics of regulation, automation, and scale will be discussed. Learn more and register at www.cms20.com. Find the latest events and updates at futurefoodshow.com. The last 21 years, Bjorn has spent traveling the globe and building markets and supply chains. His focus has been on the business development side of things, identifying industry partners, investor groups, various subject matter experts across multiple fields, and markets and disciplines. He sees virtually endless opportunities in the high-tech food industry, where the incumbents have surrendered product innovation to small, focused, and dedicated expert companies like the ones he represents. He finds it exceptionally rewarding to be able to work with products on a global scale that make real and meaningful differences in the daily lives of many individuals. Bjorn, I'd like to welcome you to the Cultured Meat and Future Food Show.
Thank you, Alex. It's great to be here.
Bjorn, tell us a little bit about your background and also a little bit about Good Idea Drinks.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I, as could be guessed from my name, I'm Swedish by origin. I came to California about 5 years ago, and I'm here now setting up my companies that I developed and started back in the US. I've been in the food industry and in the non-dairy industry for the last 20 plus years. I've been working with my brother, who's a professor in food chemistry, and back in 1994-95, he filed the first patent on a process to make milk from oats. I thought that was an outwardly crazy idea. I was at that time in the software industry and building a software company. I actually had a lot of business with the big companies down the peninsula here in California, so I traveled a lot to this part of the world already back then. But anyway, I thought I sold my software company in 97, and I figured I should go and help my brother with this crazy outworldish idea of converting people from dairy protein consumers to oat protein. How about that, huh? And it's funny, I mean, in the beginning, everybody thought I said goat milk when I said oat milk, because nobody had ever heard about that before, right? So cutting forward, in 2001, we formed a company called Oatly and launched a consumer-branded oat milk product and set out to change the world. First 10 years were pretty slow. I think we were very early in the market. But the last 10 years, it's been an explosive growth, and it's been an absolutely amazing journey for us. And there's a lot to be said and a lot to talk about there. What I do want to say, though, in the whole company, it's science-driven. It's a lot of research, clinical studies, patents. We took the R&D department out of Oatly and formed a separate R&D company back in 2008 called Aventure. And in this company, we've been focusing on developing food products with very clear health properties that we document clinically. So we've been working very hard on clinical proof all the time. And we develop, in our network of scientists, we develop processes and products that we can patent protect. We have, since 2008, successfully launched a number of companies, and some actually also not so successful. So we've gone through a couple of different experiences, put it that way. All along, of course, I've been very involved in the development of Oatly. I'm currently on the board and work a little bit with the team here in the US at times. But as I say, my daytime job is to launch a company called Good Idea, which is one of the inventions that have sprung out of our research at the venture. And Good Idea is a slightly flavored sparkling water that if you drink it with your food, it will help regulate your blood sugar and in fact reduce your blood sugar spikes extremely effectively with somewhere between 25 to 30%. And that effect has a multitude of positive health benefits for everybody. But you and I would probably notice, Alex, immediate effect if we drink it with lunch, and you stay much more awake and alert after lunch. I think first time you and I met was at your cultured meat show or conference in San Francisco, right? And we were happy to sponsor that with our beverages, and I think we had a very alert conversation after lunch there.
Yeah, and actually, so on that note, I have a Good Idea drink with me, and I've been wanting to, test out opening it on air, just because of the crisp. I mean, of course, it's just in a can, but just open it up, crisp sound of that. But when you have Good Idea with lunch, it keeps you alert, keeps you awake afterwards. Usually you kind of feel a little bit sluggish, a little bit drowsy after lunch. Is it totally fine to drink it even if you're not eating food?
Oh, absolutely. You can drink it anytime. The thing is, the active ingredients here, it may sound like magic. How can it go in and regulate blood sugar? What kind of weird stuff do you put in that thing? But the beauty is really that the active components are all very natural and things you and I need in our diet every day. In this particular case, our scientists identified 5 amino acids, so the building blocks of proteins. And these particular 5 amino acids are essential, meaning we have to have them in our diet. The body can't synthesize them internally. We need to consume them. And it just so happens that we've discovered that if you consume them in liquid form, they're extremely rapidly absorbed by the body. And they, in fact, help kickstart the metabolic processes. So trigger an early insulin release. So when carbs that you eat, if you eat together with the drink, right, the carbs converts into sugar very rapidly and ultimately to the glucose that comes out in the blood. But the liquid amino acids are even faster. So they run past in the line, right, the fast carbs, and help kickstart the process. So when the glucose from the carbs come out in the blood, the system is primed and ready and can process it much more effectively. And the last ingredient, with the other ingredient we have, which is also an essential, meaning you have to have it in your food, is the mineral, a very important mineral that in fact most Americans don't get enough of, and that's chromium. And chromium is in the scientific world extremely well documented, has extremely well documented effects on what we call insulin sensitivity, meaning it makes your insulin in the system far more efficient and works much better in processing your blood sugars. So this double whammy effect of the amino acids and chromium result in a blood sugar curve that is far more elongated and lower. So what the scientists would say, the area under the curve, the total blood sugar in your blood from your food will be reduced 25-30%. Now, your question is, what happens if I don't eat and drink it? Well, if there's no blood sugar to regulate, there will be no particular effect on the blood sugar. And you will, for you as an experience, it's just a tasty beverage that you can drink as much as you want of. I mean, the quantities that we have in the product are way under, I think you need to drink 16 cans per day to come up to what's recommended daily intake of the amino acids. So knock yourself out, right? There's no danger on overdosing, so to speak.
Here I go to open up the can. Oh. Regarding the taste, I will say that the first time I had a good idea drink, and it was the sparkling lemon lime, and that's the one I have here. It took me a second to kind of think about what it was, right? And so I was expecting, I guess, more of like a sparkling water, but then it has a nice, I don't want to say kick because it's not like a big effect, but a nice subtle flavor to it. And it took me maybe the second or third one for me to really start liking it. And so can you talk a little bit about how you guys developed the taste and the whole process of developing Foretaste?
Yeah, sure. It's in some sense, I mean, we're obviously a European company, right? And in Europe, it's been very common for a very long time to drink sparkling water and with food. And typically, had you been in Europe, let's say 20 years ago, it would be very common to squeeze a little bit of lime or a little bit of lemon with your sparkling water and consume it with your food. And when we developed Good Idea, I mean, the active ingredients, the amino acids, and the chromium, we could put them theoretically in pretty much any beverage. But what we were looking for was to put them in a beverage that's, in some sense, the least common denominator for the most number of people to be something easy to consume with food. And so from our European background, that immediately landed us in flavored waters. We had to add flavor to mask the otherwise bitter amino acid flavor. And I think the fact that there is amino acids that have sort of flavor components in their own right adds, in effect, more body, more volume to the water, which this effectively, I mean, the consumer experience, as I'm sure you can witness, is too, is exactly that of drinking a sparkling flavored water, possibly with a bit more body in the flavor itself. Although what we also did with our European heritage, we decided we don't want to over perfume it. We don't want it to be too strong of a flavor because it's going to match with food. So it needs to have that subtle, light flavor. And we also learned when we started testing this on American consumers about 2.5, 3 years ago that here you probably have an anticipation, expectations of very strong, pungent, strong flavor effectively. And traditionally the sodas here have been lots of sugar, and it's the food companies here tend to put a lot in it, right? And the benefit of that, in some sense, is probably when you drink the beverage on its own, it might be desirable to have a bit more punch, so to speak. But with food, we've seen that it really works better with a little lighter flavoring. And it's funny what you said, that it took you 1, 2, or maybe 3 tries to really get to enjoy it. And I think we see that all the time, that people that drink it, that they, the more they drink it, the more they love it. And it's almost like people get addicted to Good Idea over time. The most critical consumer test we did was 2 years ago when I invited over my daughter, at that time 13, and probably 10, 15 of her classmates, all 13-year-old girls, right? And they're all drinking LaCroix. LaCroix was sort of the big thing. And we did blind tastings and comparisons, and everybody, 100%, preferred Good Idea over LaCroix. And when you had that kind of critical consumer, right, we felt like, okay, this might work actually. So yeah, there you go. That's the background. We want you to drink it with food. It should pair with food very well. But of course, if you're thirsty, drink it anytime.
Personally, I have a little bit of dry mouth, so anytime I'm eating, I always have to have a drink with me. So if you were to offer me a cookie, I would have to say no, I don't have any milk, right? And so
you don't have any oat milk, you mean?
Yeah, exactly, oat milk. So for me, that concept was very interesting, and the comparison to LaCroix also very interesting because LaCroix has I think a higher level of carbonation, and this one has a nicer level of carbonation.
Yes.
I think. So how did you guys figure out the ideal level of carbonation?
I think it was I don't know. I think again, maybe a little bit of our European heritage there. It's very natural for us to look at lower carbonated waters. It's, if you look at the carbonated water category and the prestige, the higher end carbonated waters, the really premium products tend to have less carbonation. Add a lot of carbonation is a cheap way to hide things and to make, again, it's that add a lot to it, give it a lot of punch. It's an cheap thrill in some sense, but it may be fun first time. But over time, I think we've seen again and again and again that people actually do prefer lower levels of carbonation. So well, we don't know if we're right or wrong or true, but that we believe strongly in that, and so far it seems to be working to our advantage.
So I want to track back to what you were doing in the mid 90s. You said that you were in tech. What kind of tech were you working on back in the mid 90s?
Oh, I started a software company back in Sweden in the late 80s after graduating from engineering school. We started developing crypto solutions and computer security, and quite quickly actually made some pretty major breakthrough with Sun Microsystems and Hewlett Packard at the time that ended up selling our products all over the world. Particularly to our target market quickly became banks and government organizations across the world. So we thought we were the coolest things on the planet. We did cryptography, public cryptography, and had sophisticated solutions early on. I'm just surprised to see this 30 years later. It's still the same problems out there. So I'm not sure, but we ended up selling the company to a California-based company called RSA Security, and that was in '97, and that's when I left the software industry. I went into food and consumer products, and it really we used to go to all the cool computer conferences around here, and we thought we were the coolest kids, obviously, and that computer software was the place to be. But I had an epiphany one day when happened to be in London, and my brother actually showcased oat milk for the first time in a food show in London, Earl's Court in London. And the funny thing, if you've ever experienced the software industry, when you show a software package, whatever it is, and people come in and they'll say, well, I don't like this or that doesn't work. Well, don't worry, I'll take care of that in the next version, right? This is just a beta or whatever, and we'll fix the bugs in the next release. Well, try that at a food show if you like. If people come in and they actually eat your product, it's sort of no room for, well, we have another release coming soon. Don't worry, stay with us, right? Doesn't work that way. It's that sort of immediate kind of, I don't know, it intrigued me. I loved it. And I left the high-tech industry, or I shouldn't say the high-tech, because I think what we are doing is high-tech food. But we left the software, computer, and the high-tech, that type of high-tech industry behind, and never looked back since.
So we know it's difficult to market a product, whether it's a tech product or it's a food product. But when it comes to marketing a food product, how important is it that the branding and the marketing is successful before even the product is successful? Because we know sometimes it takes many years, many iterations on the packaging, maybe even changes to the product itself. But can you describe a little bit about the process of marketing a food product and the importance of branding and marketing?
Absolutely, yes. So I think what's happening is that it used to be in the food industry, particularly in the US, right? That it wasn't really, I mean, the big food companies will disagree with what I will say, but it was never about the consumer. It was never about marketing to the consumer and building trust and a relationship with the consumer. Has never been. It was all about logistics and owning distribution, and then broadcasting your messages using TV commercials and other types of commercials. If you were Coke, you owned the shelf space, you had a strong relationship with the retailer. Forget coming in that environment as a newbie, right? And so they bought the shelf space, and then they got the consumers to go there and pick their products off shelves by brainwashing them with expensive TV commercial campaigns. So that's how the traditional food industry built its platforms. And I think part of the backlash why pretty much no consumer, no one in this part of the world today trust big food companies. If you go out and ask, people don't trust big food companies. And I think that's a consequence of that old model that it was all about tricking you into products because we brainwashed you with TV commercials. So over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a dramatic change with the emergence of new distribution channels and a realization of the need for organic and healthy products. And this has created a flurry of new innovation and new product and all new innovation. I dare say 100%, challenge me if you can, but all new innovation comes from small upstart companies, from people that are not within the food industry, because the traditional, big food companies have fostered an army of people that have been trained in the traditional way of doing things, right? So that's why you see new innovations. Look here in California, for example, all the new cool American food companies, they are started by lawyers, by software engineers, by bankers, by people largely from outside of the food industry, where they've seen a need and they've decided, because you have a culture of starting companies and doing stuff here, right? They see and identify a need, Soylent, whatever, right? Look at them. And you set about to solve it. This is, of course, with the emergence of Amazon and alternative channels, that you're less dominated by, or you were less dependent on succeeding in retail. You could get your products to the market different channels, and ultimately led the traditional retailers to force to change attitude and accept to bring in smaller companies and new products, and give up shelf space for the new cool brands that ultimately their consumers want. Their consumers don't want necessarily only the big brands from the big companies that they don't trust. So in that context, marketing of food products have become extremely important in a very different way, and I think you still see a lot of companies struggle with that here. And I think, working closely with Oatly, I think we learned extremely much about how to succeed with branding. And branding is not just slapping a sticker on you and come up with a cool slogan or something. It becomes more of the true authenticity of the company behind. Who are you? I mean, you have to be the one you say you are. You have to live your story. And the closer to really being who you are and being honest and transparent. Transparency is so important today, right? In all aspects, showing what are the ingredients, where do they come from, how are they made, what's your real story here. Of course, everybody in one way or the other want to make money, but it's also about something else. It's about, providing, in my case, we're all so excited about our products because we can deliver true health benefits to people that really need it. And that's, we're not just peddling a beverage that happens to taste great. It actually delivers a really important health benefit. And for example, now with Good Idea, when we get emails, we just read an email Friday at the office from a mother of a 16-year-old daughter that has diabetes type 1. And we're all sort of sitting there listening to her story, how we dramatically changed the quality of life for that one person. That's what we're all about. And this all translates into, market. We need to convey that story. So when you launch a product, you need to have your message and your authentic message about who you are and what you want to do. It needs to be there day one. I think consumers expect and demand that more and more. And that's also how we can differentiate ourselves from the big ugly food companies that nobody trusts.
I think when you said that you need to live your story and that needs to come out through the brand, I think that really hits home. And I think you're right. A lot of people do just slap a label on it and think that they can make it run, but you really have to live your story and believe in your story.
I think it's so critical, right? And in the case of Oatly now, we see a lot of new oat milks hitting the market here in 2019. And it's funny for me to see how some of these bigger food companies completely changing their marketing to try to be something that they really aren't, right? Just because I think Oatly is out there and has defined in its honesty, in its transparency, the way they are now they're forcing everybody to sort of kind of move in a way where they communicate and engage with the consumers in a very different way. It remains to see who will succeed in that.
We talked about patents for the different food products that you guys have been working on. Is Good Idea patented?
Yeah, there are 3 different patents involved, and we have the patents have been approved in some 20 odd countries by now. I think some of them are still pending here in the US, but it tends to be, a rather lengthy and unfortunately also a rather costly process. But for us, it's critical because if we do clinical studies and prove that something we've invented or, that it actually has health benefits, we can't really, as a small company, independent company, invest millions in clinical studies unless we know that we actually at least have some kind of advantage when we launch the product, so that bigger companies with deeper pockets can't just make a copycat the day after and ride on the same benefits that we spent so much time in perfecting, right? So therefore, 2 cornerstones in everything we do is patentable processing or products and clinically proven.
How many flavors of Good Idea drink are available now?
We launched 3 flavors. We feel that that's the amount you need when you start launching into retail and food services. We have, I think, 5 or 6 flavors that we have tested and worked with. So we're ready to launch more flavors when we have inertia and movement in the market. But currently we have 3 flavors: dragon fruit, orange mango, and lemon lime.
Being based in the US, where is the best place to pick up Good Idea drinks?
The easiest place to get Good Idea for anyone today is to go to Amazon and just look up Good Idea drinks, and you buy it off Amazon. We are in about 200 retailers right now. We launched in retail in last summer, and we are distributed by a national distributor called KeHE that has taken us into 8 of their distribution centers by now. But by the nature of the way how things work in the retail industry, the first customers to bring us on board are typically smaller independent retailers, because they can make purchase decisions right there and then very quickly. We're of course working with bigger retail chains, but they have reset schedules, and then bottom line is that can take 8, 10, 12 months before they make a decision until you're on shelf. So if you happen to be in Mill Valley, for example, you can go to Mill Valley Market, and there are other stores up in Marin County. We've been servicing a number of supermarkets in Santa Rosa and San Rafael and around here directly. If you're in Southern California, you can go to a place like Lassen's in the Midwest. We have quite a lot of smaller independent chains. Plum Market happens to be one, Jumbo Jim's another one. For those out there that happen to listen in that part of the world and recognize them. We're also rolling out in food service, so we're actually going to address and sell directly to a lot of the offices and companies here in the Bay Area for lunches, so you can have it with your lunch.
And I know that you had mentioned a couple different flavors that you guys were experimenting with, but are there any new products that are planned to come out, or products that you're working on that you might be able to discuss?
In Good Idea, you mean? No, we have the 3 we have on the market now, and we have other flavors ready to launch when we have built more scale and more presence in the market. So it's really not so much to say that more than that yeah, there'll be more flavors. Don't worry.
And I want to kind of start the closing by really asking, what advice do you have for those interested in starting a new food company?
Patience, patience, patience. it don't expect an overnight success. It takes time, and that's the frustrating part of it. That aspect I can at times look back to the software industry, and if you have a software package, you can scale very quickly if you're successful, right? That's obviously very difficult in the food industry, um, for obvious reasons. So I think you need to expect that 3, 5, 6, 7 years from start to start to get to a 30-50 million dollar business. Somewhere in that range. Of course, there are exceptions. There are occasional, outliers that make this much quicker. But as I said, just the inertia in the retail, it can take a year to get into retail, right? The bigger chains, and unless you can get into occasional, test markets and whatnot quicker, and independents, as I said. But the independents are by definition typically much smaller and don't generate the big volumes. So you need to sort of earn your way by succeeding in the independents and go up to the smaller regional chains and show traction and show successful sell-through rates, and then you're going to start get accepted by bigger retailers, and it just takes time. It's really hard to come up with a shortcut there. Obviously, a way around that, people would argue, would be selling online, and which we are doing. I just mentioned Amazon, right? But also with water, for example, and water beverages, online distribution is not super easy because we have pretty heavy products, so the ratio value to weight is not favorable. If you are in dietary supplements, for example, it's a very, very different story, right? So there are many successful dietary supplement companies that only sell online. That's not quite food, though. But if you have a food product like bars or other things where you have more value per weight, online business can be a really good way forward. And as I say this, we're starting to see some beverage companies that are very successful in their online business and build an online presence and have that online presence help drive their brick and mortar presence over time.
You can get in touch with Bjorn on LinkedIn and learn more about Good Idea Drinks at www.goodideadrinks.com. Bjorn, thank you so much for being with us today. Are there any last insights you might have for our listeners?
Yeah, it takes longer time and it costs more money, but that then they've heard that before, right? So otherwise, I think being in the food industry is one of the coolest places to be in right now. It's an industry that needs change drastically, and where all the major incumbents basically resigned any innovation. So it's a wide open space for innovation, and I encourage people to look at it. I think it's a great spot to be in.
Bjorn, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Alex. It was really cool. Thank you very much.
This is your host, Alex, and we look forward to being with you on our next episode.